since the introduction of the inverse forms into the Data Live series, I have been reading the light novels and came to the conclusion of making this video. Since the forms debut in Season 2 of the anime and Volume 7 of the light novels, the inverse spirit forms can be considered a seductive and naughty versions of the spirit's astral dress. Spirit undergoes a radical change in personality, emotion, and exhibit different forms of sorrow, grief, and despair. If I could describe the two other Data Live fans about the inverse form, think of it like it's your Super Saiyans from Dragon Ball Z or Alters from Fate, but a little more seductive and burst with negative energy. The inverse forms are based off different forms of grief within their philosophy. Tengen Toka is denial, negative, and is the most self-aware of the inverse spirits. Despite her taking over Toka's body, she deeply cares for the desires and happiness. Inverse Origami represents the true abyss of reality, despair, and her past sins. Her inverse form represents an aspect of death, which is loneliness and isolation. Inverse Origami is the most nihilistic and existential part of Origami's demons. The users who obtain inverse or goes on a berserk-like state in Tachibana's own writing narrative of the novels of Data Live and exploring the dark morality and corrupt aspects about humanity and the spirits. There are different forms of philosophy to describe the inverse spirit's existential mindset. Think of the inverse spirits as your dark side of that character or true form of that despairless desire. When we humanize it and conceptualize it and their motivations of the characters into the empty, broken reality, in the story of Genesis and the Bible itself of the story of Adam and Eve, in the beginning of God's creation of the heavens and earth, during the Genesis story in the Bible, the serpent also represents a devil or dark side of humanity. God told them not to eat from the tree that has the knowledge of good and evil. The tree stood in the middle of the garden of paradise. The snake suggests to Eve to eat off the tree. Serpent told them, once they eat the apple of the truth of good and evil, you will be like God. Both Adam and Eve eaten off the fruit and broke the only rule God stated. Once they have eaten the apple with the knowledge of good and evils of the world, they have committed the first human sin. Once they realized the two humans had made a tragic mistake, they started to see the idea and perception of God. Religion and philosophy is a major factor in the Data Live character outlook within the fictional universe. The story of Adam and Eve eating from the tree of good and evil, I'm going to be using it as a reference to Origami's descent as an inverse spirit. During Origami's portion of the story, she had always had this existential and isolated aspects about her past. When her parents was killed by the unknown spirit, she vowed to kill the spirit who haunted her nightmares and brought treachery to her existence. Tachibana Koshi, the author of Data Live, tries to explore the lie she believes in when it comes to her rivalry with Toka. She displays a form of love rivalry with the spirit she fought. Origami during Volume 3 to 9 shows a form of respect to the spirits herself. The rivalry starts to get tested during Volume 10, with Origami as the AST member trying to save lives while preventing danger and war. During the spirits battle with Origami and Toka, despite her destroying the town during her introduction to the story, accepted her past sins and gained value in her humanity. Despite these two female warriors being the opposite of each other from different point of views until now, Origami hasn't accepted the angels as people and rebels at that fact that when the Phantom Spirit gave her a crystal and was reborn as Metatron Origami, she starts to feel more freedom and tries to prove that she isn't like the spirits. Despite Origami turning into a new spirit, some of her humanity and diligence was tested. This arc wouldn't end yet when Origami goes back in time to the beginning of her tragedy. She realizes and sees the phantom spirit. During those multiple attacks and Origami losing her sanity, Origami found out she was the one who is responsible for causing this tragedy on herself. The human who tried to save her parents and herself have committed the act of murder. This led to the human who tried to brush off her own pride and awareness to become the monster Origami, became a demon, lost her insanity, and went into a grief-like state of wrath. Angel has fallen, and the despairless demon has become a vengeful one. So now that the viewer has a brief summary of the psychological of the inverse, we will now talk about the emptiness and resolution. When it comes to the aspects of how can the characters open up a new leaf while opening up to the change and virtues. When it comes to the writing of Data Live's meta-narrative, when using the spirit forms and inverse states, it can be traced back to the Judaism and 10 Kabbalistic cardinal numbers are the corresponding to the divine primordial ideas of the unknown and unknown of the world, that which was created. I'm talking about the tree of life. The spirits in the harem represents a different aspects of humanity and what makes a living being human. Oka represents the 10th sephirah of the tree of life, which is the physical matter, which is the starting point of the path of God. The physical matter has a realization, cohesion, material of the human body, influence of all prime ideas, and supreme influence. She is the incarnated deity of the planet and can be considered Lord Jesus Christ, while Origami is represented as the highest deity of the tree, as is the crown root of the Sephiric tree. Origami in the Kabbalah tree of life represents wisdom, the seed of idea and insight, inspiration, intuition, and incoherence awareness. The color blue and black represents the emergence of something from no thing. When it comes to the duality of both Toka and Origami inverse states, that represents the different philosophical archangel of Judaism. I will make an analysis video on Origami later to explain her philosophy and character, but when it comes to the contrast of both Tenka and Inverse Origami, both of these inner demons want to protect and save their other counterparts. The inverse can be considered a personal fallen angel or demons. Despite of their bad intuitions and intentions, they want to fulfill the desires of the original users while creating a barrier of existential and cohesions to save them from the reality of the cosmic awareness of life. Origami's devil inverse wants to save her other half. Herself can be considered a divergent timeline version of herself, of her previous despairless grief from the original timeline. In her conversation with herself, Origami, despite her high intelligence, had to be brought back and conceptualize those ideals and concepts of the cosmic despair and new reality, while self-preserving herself from the others and restraining the old Origami from reserving her memories and previous demons from the time as a child and spirit. The Tenga arc is still going in the light novel, and I can't spoil her arc in the video right now. In a simple term of manner, the inverse spirits represents a darker and more monstrous side of humanity without our life. Despite the darkness in the inverse spirits never being forgotten, it still has a part of the character's spirituality and psychological aspects of the tree of life. I hope you guys enjoyed the analysis video. If you did, smash that like button for my daily live analysis, and I will see you guys later.